What a time to be alive. Don't you agree, Jesse? Jesse? Okay, yeah, that's right. She's on an extravagant vacation, traveling the world in a gold plane. But since I actually care about work and you, our loyal viewer, the sweat rolls on. I'm _Emerson on Instagram. And before we talk football, let's dive into the first MLB postseason game of the year with DraftKings contributors Pierce Dietrich and Garion Thorne. Gentlemen, we are chasing, we are fading DK Sportsbook bets ahead of the NL wildcard game between the Brewers and the Nationals. Gare Bear, the Brewers, winning the season series 4-2. However, they're underdogs tonight at plus 165, while Washington is at minus 190. And we'll have Max Scherzer on the mound. Any chance you're chasing the Brew Crew here?
I know that a lot of the sharp money seems to be going on the Brewers, and I can understand that that's a relatively large line in a wild card game for a team that's been very hot as of late. I just think I like the Nationals here. I know Scherzer's been struggling as of late. I know that he's lost his last seven, or his team has lost his last 7 playoff starts. That's not great. Let's talk about trends that have actually been affecting this season. The Nationals are 8-0 in their last 8 home games against teams that are 500 or better. They win against good teams in Washington. The Nationals are also 12-3 in their last 15 games started by Max Scherzer, because here's a secret: Max Scherzer is really, really good at baseball.
Yeah.
The other big worry I would have here is just exactly how the Brewers are going to navigate this lineup the second and third time through. I think we can all agree that Woodruff's probably not going to see these guys a second time. The 2 most effective relievers in their bullpen are Josh Hader and Drew Pomeranz, left-handed pitchers. The Nationals crush left-handed pitchers. So that basically, I don't want to say it takes away the 2 best options, but it definitely compromises them. And I think that's going to be big late in this game in what should be a close game.
Okay, what do you think here, Pierce?
I'm also going to fade that, but I do want to talk about Hader and Pomeranz. I don't think that they're strictly platoon pitchers, and I understand that the Nationals can hit lefties pretty well, but Pomeranz and Hader should be fine tonight. That wouldn't be the reason that I would favor the Nationals. I'd favor the Nationals simply because of common sense, looking at who's got the best starters tonight, who's going to throw out the best relievers tonight, who has the best hitters tonight, who's at home tonight, who's winning games at home nonstop. Everything goes towards the Nationals in this game. I get betting the sharp option of taking the odds and hoping, it's a baseball game, anyone can win, and playing the Brewers. But on paper, it seems like the Nationals are the surefire win.
But Pierce, no concern over his winless record in 4 postseason games with the Nationals, talking Scherzer here?
I'm not so much concerned about what's happened in the past in terms of trends. I don't think Scherzer is going out there tonight thinking, oh, well, in the past this happened and that happened. He's focusing on throwing pitches and getting out individual batters. And this lineup that he's facing is banged up and not the best lineup that he's ever, or that they can really roll out. I don't see that much worry here.
Okay, Pierce, we're looking at a run total of 7.5. Would you chase the over? Pierce?
No, I'm going to fade this one. You look at, you've got really good pitching rolling out with Scherzer. You're going to have Strasburg coming in relief, and then you've got Corbin coming in relief. And as I mentioned already, the Brewers, Kane's banged up, Ron's banged up. That lineup is just not a solid lineup. They strike out a lot. They struck out 27% of the time in September, and this is not a guy that you really want to strike out against a lot. And then we've got Woodruff, who will be fine for the couple innings that he's out there. You got a good bullpen. I think this is a pitcher's duel.
What do you think here, Garion? Which side do you fall on?
Yeah, I agree. I don't really feel as strongly about this over-under as I do just about betting the Nationals on the money line. But if I had to pick, I would side with the under. And I think Pierce really, illustrated the point. There's just going to be good pitchers in this game. If you think about one of the reasons people have liked betting the Nationals over for most of this season, aside from the fact they roll out an exceptional offense, it's been those bullpen deficiencies. We won't see bad relievers from the Nationals tonight. We're going to see Patrick Corbin coming out of the bullpen. We might see Steven Strasburg coming out of the bullpen, and then you've got Sean Doolittle. They at least have a very, very capable reliever as the backstop of this team. So I just don't think you're going to see bad pitchers, and that might be a simplified version of why you should bet the under, but I think it's important.
All right, Gary, a big difference here in strikeout totals for Scherzer and Woodruff. Mad Max is at 9.5. Woody's just 3.5. Both overs, though, land you plus money, so which one would you chase?
I think you have to chase Scherzer's. I know 9.5 is a big number, but you look at the recent struggles of the Brewers. They've they've kept their head above water, but they actually haven't been that great on offense since Christian Yelich went out. And one of the big deficiencies we've seen the last 30 days, they have the highest strikeout rate of any National League team, up around 28%. That obviously plays very poorly into one of the best strikeout pitchers of our generation, where with Woodruff, you've got so many factors working against him. In his 2 starts since coming off the IL, he's maxed out at 38 pitches. He's yet to see more than 7 batters, so he'd have to strike out more than 50% if we're going by what we've seen so far. And the Nationals just don't strike out. They have the lowest swinging strike rate of any National League team. They have the highest contact rate of any National League team. It's just not a set of conditions that really lead you to thinking the strikeout total is going to be high for Woodruff.
Yeah, Pierce Garian makes a good point here, too. And in those 2 short stints he's had since coming off the IL, I mean, you're looking at strikeout totals of just 3 and 4. So is Scherzer the safer bet?
Yeah, he's a safer bet here. You've got a team that strikes out and a pitcher that strikes batters out. And the problem with Woodruff is he's faced 7 batters in the last 2 games. And we've already seen Milwaukee in the postseason last year have a short leash with their pitchers, with guys that they thought might go a little bit longer. And they really have no intention of leaving Woodruff out there. And we have seen him get some strikeouts in short innings, but as Gary mentioned, the Nationals don't strike out that much. And a lot of the strikeouts are at the bottom of the lineup. We might not even see him make it to the bottom of the lineup if he only goes 2 innings. Maybe he faces them once, but he's not going to get a second time against the bottom of the lineup. I don't see him getting over 3.5. He might get to 3. That's pushing it.
All right, Pierce. Mike Moustakas, though, has the best odds of anybody to send presents to the people at plus 250. Would you kind of get after his chances of going deep here, or if not, who do you like the most to homer?
I'm going to fade this. I really don't like anyone hitting home runs tonight. And I'll talk about a guy in the next segment who I think might hit a home run, but I don't love it because this is going to be a pitcher's duel. You look at Moustakas versus Scherzer, and it's 6 for 36, 11 strikeouts, and 110 ISO. To his defense, he has hit better on the road, but he's facing a really good pitcher on the road. I've seen one projection that has him as the most likely to hit a home run, but let's say he's got Scherzer, he's got Strasburg, he's got to face Corbin. I don't like it.
What do you like with this bet here, Garian?
Yeah, I think if I'm going to be forced to pick someone I think is going to hit a home run, I would just go with Juan Soto or Anthony Rendon. Their odds are hovering around 4-1. They're just better players than Mike Moustakas, and they really don't have any split deficiencies either, which is going to be important in a game where they might see 4 different pitchers in all 4 of their plate appearances. If you're going to pick a Brewer, you could maybe talk me into Yasmani Grandal. One thing I do like about Grandal in this matchup, if you look at his expected WOBA against right-handed pitchers on pitches going more than 95 miles an hour, he's got a 387 expected WOBA. So he can handle Max Scherzer's fastball. That's not a long list of guys who can do that. So he's kind of interesting, but yeah, I'm not taking Moustakas here.
Yeah, and it's kind of tough too because, I mean, after Scherzer, you likely have Strasburg, like coming out of the bullpen, right, Garian?
Yeah, I mean, I think Corbin would even be the more terrifying answer, as Corbin just completely dominates left-on-left matchups. But this is tough. And then Sean Doolittle. Mike Moustakas' final 2 at-bats of this game could be left-on-left, and that's a nightmare. All
right, guys, have those NL Wildcard Showdown picks ready because that's the next time we see you, too. We're going to price check some of the NFL salaries right after Panel B stops talking.
Let's try to think of a game theory for this. Is it Scherzer? Like, where do we think the majority of people will go with this? I'm intrigued because I think, with how hot the Brewers have been, like, that's kind of the way I'm leaning here. Find the home runs.
I haven't made up my decision which way, if I bet this game, how I would bet this game yet. But if I'm playing this showdown slate, I'm definitely stacking the Brewers because you're getting the cheaper bats, fading the bigger name pitcher, and going after somebody who we've seen as a vulnerable pitcher lately. So
I think you could still stack Brewers bats with Scherzer though, because I think the strikeout and home runs.
Upside, yeah.
I just wouldn't captain Scherzer.
I was going to say
as
you
a captain
can't captain
18,000
Scherzer if you're going to do that. It would make it nearly impossible. You're getting bottom of the barrel guys if you're going to be doing that. But one thing that
looks like Jenko likes bottom of the barrel guys.
All I'm saying is, like, everybody, like, there hasn't been one Brewer who's been, like, the guy because that guy has a broken leg. Like, and so, again, like, you're just trying to find other guys, who maybe have the platoon advantage. Yasmani Grandal is really cheap.
Yep.
Things like that. Like, even Moustakas isn't that expensive. Like, I don't know. Don't hate it.
No, I would definitely be looking at the lefties here. Scherzer, his splits are never bad, but they're definitely weighted more towards pitching poorly against lefties than they are against righties. I mean, he's been basically almost unhittable against righties, but lefties definitely have the advantage there, and they've hit 11 of the 18 home runs he's allowed on the season too as well. So definitely put that into consideration. So yeah, Moustakas, Grandal, those are definitely. I would consider captaining one of those two if you want it to be a little bit contrarian, because in these showdown contests, obviously the starting pitchers are going to be the ones you're looking at for captain, and I think it's pretty obvious who the most popular captain would be, which is Scherzer, which obviously limits the rest of your roster because you captain Scherzer and you're already down to 6,200 for the rest of your lineup. That's tough to fill out after that.
Just looking at Scherzer's BVP here against the Milwaukee lineup.
That's my.
I know Bucks will get on board with this.
That's my shtick.
So Yelich is actually 10 for 29 against him with 3 home runs.
Don't matter.
You take him out of the mix here is my point. The rest of the Brewers' bats are 16 for 114 against him
I
with
wouldn't expect
2 home runs and 40 strikeouts.
I mean, that's what I would
And
expect.
I also
game.
learned that the Brewers have a guy named Tuffy Goswitch.
What?
From what era?
Tuffy?
Right now, and he's 1 for 4
he's a
against
catcher.
Scherzer with a walk.
Look how happy he is. He's so happy.
That a boy tough.
Watch,
battle,
this
Tuffy.
dude's going to be in the lineup, and he's going to hit a grand slam.
Alrighty, it is time to talk some foosball, and right now it's time to say hello to our NFL panel. DraftKings contributors Jeff Ulrich and Matt Jones. Wow, what a stranger. And the fantasy girl herself, Rosalie Michaels. Price check-in as we enter week 5 of the fantasy football season. Deshaun Watson makes a $300 jump, will now cost you $6,700. Only put up 12 points on Sunday. Why the boost here, Matty?
I mean, I think he has one of the highest ceilings of any quarterback in the league, right? Like we've seen since the start of his career, he's finished as a QB1 in 63% of his starts. So I think that it makes sense that he would be up near the top of the salary scale, regardless of what happened, in a previous week.
You going to drop this change on him, Rosalie?
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with Matt here. I'm not sure why he's so high. You look at his numbers over this season. That Houston offense is not what we're expecting out of it. They're still ranked, he's still ranked 9th in fantasy points so far this year. But you look at Atlanta, and Atlanta's not great against the QB, but they're not terrible either. They're giving up about 19.2 DK fantasy points a game, and about 1.8 passing touchdowns per game, but they did give up 3 passing touchdowns to Mariota last week and 2 to Brissett the week before. So I think that speaks well for Deshaun. The problem is that they need to get DeAndre Hopkins involved in this passing game. We're seeing D-Hop's numbers down. We're seeing Watson's numbers down. And until those come up, I think this is too high for him, especially when you've got Brady versus Washington right there, as well as Jameis versus New Orleans, and Kyler Murray versus Cincinnati this week. All slightly less than Watson. I think he's too expensive.
Jeff, it's kind of crazy. I'm looking at his numbers. The 2 away games, he's hitting like 30 points. And then the 2 games at home, it's just floating around 12 fantasy points a game. And he's at home this week against Atlanta.
Yeah, I think when you really start to dive into the numbers in this matchup, the price increase actually does make sense, Emerson. Look, this is an Atlanta defense. The numbers, the pure numbers may not look that bad, but they gave up over 10 yards per attempt to Marcus Mariota last week, hitting long touchdowns after long touchdowns. Mariota's career yards per attempt is 7.5. The week before to Jacoby Brissett, it was 8.5 yards per attempt. His career average is more like 6.6. They cannot contain the big plays. T.Y. Hilton, 10 targets, 8 catches, 65 yards, and a touchdown in one half of play. What is DeAndre Hopkins going to do in this matchup? This is not a good defense. They're without their safety, Keanu O'Neal. They don't get good pressure on the quarterback. I think this is an absolute spot to deploy Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller, by the way, and look for a really big day. I'm glad his price is up because I think it's going to keep people off him in big GPPs.
Okay, Rosalie, what are your thoughts on Phillip Rivers? Is he a steal at 5,800?
Yeah, of course. You see Phillip Rivers at 5,800. That is a steal, but I am worried about him a little bit, even at that price point. You know, Denver's pass defense is really good. They're only giving up 12.6 fantasy points a game. You know, 1 passing touchdown, 206 passing yards. Those are not great numbers. And we look at the cake matchup that Rivers had last week versus Miami. Should have had like a lot of fantasy points there, and he only scored 23.4. So, you know, you look at his numbers though, he is throwing about 300 passing yards every game. Also has 2 or more touchdown throws out of 3 of the last 4. So yeah, it is it's seemingly a very cheap price for Phillip Rivers. I'm a little worried though, because the Denver D is terrible against the run. This is going to be Melvin Gordon's first game back. I think they're really going to highlight him a lot and really throw him in there a lot. So I don't think that Rivers is going to have to throw the ball a lot. Denver's not going to score a lot of points. So I'm interested to see what happens. So yeah, it's a cheap price point. There's not really anybody else around him at that price point except for Andy Dalton, who's going up against Arizona. So it's intriguing, but the way Andy Dalton looked last week versus Pittsburgh, which should have been a good matchup for him too, I don't even know if I trust him. So yeah, he's cheap, but I don't know if a lot of people are going to deploy him.
Yeah, it's a good point about the run defense there, because Leonard Fournette just rushed for a career-high 225 yards against Denver.
Yeah.
Jeff, if our boy Minshew can kind of shred up the Denver D when he needs to, Phillip Rivers obviously can do the same, correct?
Yeah, he can, but I mean, these are 2 of the slowest paced teams in the league. I mean, the Chargers actually play at a slower pace than Denver. The knock against Denver was they weren't getting sacks, but they came through with 5 last week. I think they're going to be able to get a little bit of pressure too against kind of a banged up, not that great Chargers line. If you just look at the game card on Phillip Rivers, yeah, this looks like a good price. I really want nothing to do with this game, quite frankly. Maybe like a GPP slot on Melvin Gordon, but Phillip Rivers, even at the discount, not really interesting to me.
Okay, Matt, how interesting is this man with this discount?
Yeah, I think everything that they've said is correct. Like we're sort of getting a dent in his ceiling priced in, so he's fine. I don't think he's going to be a huge part of my exposure this week, but yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like whatever. Like it's not you don't get excited about it, right?
Guys, David Johnson rises up to $7,500, an increase of $700. He's getting ready to face the Bungles. Is he worth paying that much for, Jeffrey?
Yeah, he is. Look, if you watch the Monday Night Football game, you know that the Cincinnati Bengals linebackers are probably the worst unit in the league. And it's not necessarily that they're just allowing a ton of yards. They're only allowing 4.5 yards per carry, which puts them in the middle of the pack. But it's against running backs out of the backfield, 9.3 yards per reception. David Johnson is averaging 45 yards just as a receiver. He's averaging 7 targets. He's a great receiver. That's where he makes his – that's where he's been paying off for fantasy owners here. This is an absolute mismatch. Fast-paced game, 2 fast-paced teams, especially the Arizona Cardinals. Yeah, David Johnson is in a big spot here. And I'd even go as far to say I wouldn't be shocked if Chase Edmonds also had a big day, just on like 20% of the snaps.
Matt, you like the spot he's in?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you were 7,500, I would consider playing you this week, Emerson.
Are you serious? You've clearly seen me work out. Oh, yeah, Reed Fowler can't stand it. He's off camera right now. He hates the fact that you brought up how chiseled I am.
Yeah, I mean, if Reed was like 6,500, I'd consider him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff said it. Like, DJ has the second most targets among running backs. He's been an RB1 in 3 of his 4 games already. Like, and the Cardinals really haven't done a ton yet. So, yeah, I'm perfectly fine firing up DJ this week.
Rosalie, this is your team out there.
Yeah, it is my team out there, and my David Johnson. If you look at my cup here right now, there you go. He's right there.
Take a sip.
He's right there. DJ all day. That's it. We're back to it. DJ all day. The only thing that does worry me about this just a little bit is this is a road game. If we watch what they did with Baltimore, totally different, situation in Baltimore. But, they didn't deploy David Johnson as much versus Baltimore, but this matchup, that price point, they give up 200 all-purpose yards and 39 fantasy points a game to running backs, so you have to take it. I think that many people might stay off of him just because I think people still don't trust that Arizona offense or that offensive line, so it might be a really good spot, but yeah, all day, DJ.
Guys, we do have some breaking news right now with Mike Garofalo reporting the Bengals wide receiver John Ross expected to miss multiple games with a shoulder injury, as if they could be any more banged up there on the outside. Poor Andy Dalton, right? Suffered that injury last night against the Steelers, so could be in the range of a month or so. My question for you, I'll start with Jeff. Tyler Boyd, 6,500. You want him at that price now that Ross is out?
Yeah, I mean, I was interested in Tyler Boyd before this injury came in. I mean, Tyler Boyd kind of works just a different role. He's more the primary receiver, works out of the slot. I think the guy that really bumps up is Auden Tate, who's already averaging, I think, around 7 targets the last 2 games. He's a really big body receiver going up against a crappy set of cornerbacks in just a bad defense in the Cardinals. So I think it really bumps up Tate's upside at only 3,500 on DraftKings.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point here. Let's see, he had a big week 3, or big in his eyes, I guess, 13.8 fantasy points. Matt, what do you think? Who increases here? Whose value?
Yeah, no, I think that if they watch that game back from last night and don't realize that they need to get Tyler Boyd the ball, then there's probably really no hope in Cincinnati right now. So I was interested in Boyd anyway, so this shoots it up for me. Yeah,
Rosalie, it seems like Boyd is a no-brainer here.
Yeah, Boyd is a no-brainer. Who we're not talking about, and I'm going to talk about a little bit later too,
is
Tyler Eifert, who used to be a big fantasy name, and he's come back, and he had 5 targets this week, and so, of course, we know how the Cardinals play against tight ends, so I think he's going to be some good money this week, too.
We'll tease ahead to our waiver wire pickup segment. Okay, we're going to rip through some of the spreads on the Week 5 slate coming up immediately following this edition of Tour Junkies.
You did not mention Hideki Matsuyama, who whenever he is in the field, you talk about him. And I want to know, we didn't even talk about him on the show. I want to know what about Hideki didn't impress you, because it's Hideki. I mean, and he's at 9,700. He's not in that over 10K range. So, I want to get your thoughts on Hideki, because you're a Hideki lover. You love him every single week he's in the field, and you did not even talk about him, mention him, nary a word about Hideki this week.
Yeah, I know, man. It's rather strange for me too. I mean, I do. Hideki's always a threat. He's always a threat because the ball striking is usually very good. He's not a great putter, and that's been a problem for him. The putting on bent grass surfaces isn't bad for Hideki. It's not great, but it's not bad. If you look at him on easy courses versus average versus difficult courses on the PGA Tour, he actually performs worse on easy courses, and this is an easier course. It's a birdie fest, right? But, I mean, last week we saw him miss the cut at the Safeway, his first event back, and it wasn't terrible. I mean, he lost strokes with the putter, but what else is new? That's what he does. He loses strokes with the putter. But he just... He wasn't hitting it well, tee to green. I don't know. Actually, honestly, I mean, when it's all said and done, if projections have Hideki at sub 10% on DraftKings, that is kind of interesting. So it's really not that I just don't like him, but yeah, there's so many guys in that range I like though. Scheffler, I like. Neiman, Finau in that range. I love those 3 guys. So.
I feel like there's a shot that you get Hideki at.
I think there's a shot at that.
One of the lowest ownerships you've seen him all year.
That may be true.
I'm serious. I think that could happen this week. Which if that does happen, I'm all over it.
Yeah, I think I will too. I mean, I agree. I mean, the ball striking last week, which was the first time we've seen him since the Tour Championship, none of it was terrible. It just wasn't great, and then he lost a stroke and a half with the putter, which again is what he does. So it's just it may be kind of like Cantlay, just shaking the dust off a little bit.
Okay, let's peep some of the lines for Week 5 around the NFL with these 2 dudes and 1 lady. DraftKings contributors. Reed Fowler and Matt Jones, and the fantasy girl, Rosalie Michaels. Are the following spreads too high or too low? You tell me. Redskins, 14.5-point underdogs to the Patriots. Too high or too low? Mr. Fowler.
I think this is around the money. It might be too low a little bit. I mean, if you look at the Patriots, what they did against Buffalo, not that good, right? They really didn't get anything going on offense. I think that's a testament more to Buffalo as opposed to an indictment on the Patriots offense. And just in Washington, who's going to be the quarterback? I mean, we have Colt McCoy. I mean, we saw Dwayne Haskins and Steve Buchanan's hot fire pick of Case Keenum all be considered for this start or playing time in Week 5. And if you just look at the Patriots, for what it's worth, in Week 5, they're 15-3 against the spread. That's just a number that you want to throw out there. It doesn't really correlate to this specific season, but Washington, just not that good.
Rosalie, what do you think?
I think it's actually too low. I mean, look, the Redskins can only manage 3 points against the Giants. The Giants. Now, what do you think this Patriots defense is going to do to them? I'm intrigued by Dwayne Haskins and seeing what he can do if he's in there. But you know what? That Patriots defense is on fire. They're giving up 6.8 points per game. Granted, they haven't faced a truly great offense yet, but they're not going to again this week. So I think that the Patriots easily cover this.
Maddie, the Pats have gone 10-0 straight up, 8-2 against the spread when favored by 14 or more points over the past 5 years. Talk to me.
Yeah, just the Redskins aren't going to score any points. So you're just asking yourself, are the Patriots going to score 15 or more points? Like, yeah, it's a joke. Yeah, it should be way more.
And you know they're just going to be like boiling inside after that game against Buffalo last Sunday too. Rosalie, Texans though favored by 5 over Atlanta. Too high or too low?
You know, this is a tough one for me because I'm not quite sure what the Texans are doing down there. You know, they both came off disparaging home losses this past week, but I think I like the Texans kind of getting on track this week. I know I just said I'm not a big fan of Watson this week, but I think they have to start getting DeAndre Hopkins involved. I think they need to start really throwing the ball downfield to them. I just don't know if they are. So I think I'm going to take the Texans in the point here just because I'm not trusting that Atlanta can score. They're not getting in the end zone the way that we're used to. For them to not have Julio involved the way that they should have in that easier matchup last week, I'm not trusting that Atlanta offense. So I'm taking the Texans in the points this week.
Yeah, Matt, Falcons haven't covered in any of their past 12 games against the AFC here.
Yeah, I mean, Bill O'Brien's a bozo, but like Atlanta's just garbage. Like there's no way around it. Like they don't have an identity. Like Freeman looks terrible, Ryan doesn't look great. Like it's bad news all around. I think that we'll probably look back at this game at the end of the year and say this is when Houston kind of clicked.
Okay, Reed, do you agree with that? Does Houston click?
I think so, and I think when you just look at how this line is moving, I think a lot of people think for whatever reason that Atlanta has some sort of shot, or for whatever reason it is. It's like, this is what we talked about last week too with Tennessee, and that's why I was so high on Tennessee, was that Atlanta's just not a good team. Talk about bozos. I mean, you bring in Dirk Cutter over from Tampa Bay, and he doesn't look any better than what you had earlier with the Sarkisian. So you kind of have to figure what these, they're not even using Calvin Ridley. I mean, Mohamed Sanu, who is a great player, who's that bye-week flyer that everyone loves, is getting more run than Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley might be dealing with the injury, but if you just look at this matchup specifically against these two teams, 4-0 on the home team and covering the spread, you like Houston. I think DeAndre Hopkins is going to have a monster game against a secondary that's not that good. They just brought in Cyprien over from, I forget where he came in from, but they just traded for him. They just need a lot of work in the secondary, and DeAndre Hopkins is absolutely going to demolish that secondary.
Maddie, Saints 3.5-point favorites over division rival Tampa Bay. Too high, too low?
I mean, I think it's about right, honestly. Maybe a point or two too low. The Saints obviously play better at home, whether that's a function of Breeze or whether that's just because the home field advantage, I guess, remains to be seen. But I will stick with New Orleans at home over Tampa, who maybe figured it out last week, but most likely not.
Fowler, Bucks haven't done a great job beating division rivals really over the past few years, but they've done a decent job covering.
Yeah, and if you just that's their ability, right? That's the ability of a good offense. I know I just talked talked very negatively on Dirk Cutter, but Tampa Bay, and even Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston's kind of
he's
like
back.
He's kind of, if there was such a thing as a rich man's Fitzpatrick, that's kind of what Jameis Winston is, or vice versa. But they can get in these games. They can get in these shootout games, and Bruce Arians has finally got this team going. Is finally really humming on offense. And if you just look at this division rivalry, I think you look at Tampa Bay 4-0-1 in their last 5 road games that are covering against the spread and covering. So you like where this is going. You like that the run game is getting a little bit better. The Saints, you just don't know. They've won with Teddy Bridgewater, but they've not been exciting to watch, nor have they really put up any points. So I do like the Tampa Bay here.
Rosalie, this has got to be one of the wildest betting streaks going. I'm reading here, New Orleans has covered the spread in 13 straight October games, dating back to Week 5 of 2015.
Yeah, those historical references are always interesting. But when it comes to breakdown by the month, that doesn't interest me much because every team is different each year, So it is interesting, but I think you have to take the week-to-week performance of each team into consideration. And when you look at it, the Saints allow 300 passing yards a game and about 3 touchdowns per game. And Reed's right. BA has he's the quarterback whisperer. Look what he's done with Jameis down there. So, Jameis is 4th in the NFL right now, has 9 touchdown passes and only 5 interceptions, and the 3 of those
wow.
So you gotta like that. And when we look at the Saints defense versus what Tampa Bay just did to the Rams defense, you gotta think that the Bucs are going to have a good shot in this game. So I actually like this as an upset that the Bucs win over the Saints.
Money line.
I know.
Look at you.
I know.
Reed, Cowboys 3.5-point favorites over Green Bay. Too high? Too low?
I think this is too high. Whenever you got Dallas in these games, especially these two teams are very publicly bet, always Green Bay and Dallas. Green Bay is not that good against the run at all. And Ezekiel Elliott fumbled last week. I think he's in a prime spot to bounce back, DFS and every format in general. But just look at the underdogs. The underdogs in these matchups do really well. And you just look at Green Bay on the road. They've done a little bit better than they have last year. And this Green Bay defense, it's sort of the bend, don't break type of mentality. So I do think that Dallas gets a little bit too much public money on them when they shouldn't. So I like Green Bay in this spot.
Mr. Jones, Aaron Rodgers has just dominated the Cowboys over recent memory.
Yeah, I don't know if you're bringing this up because I troll about Rodgers a lot or not, but I'm not a buyer of this Packers team right now. Dallas has done much better under Dak at home. They score about 4 more points at home than they do on the road. And I'm just, like I said, I'm just not buying this Packers team. So I'll take the Cowboys there.
Who are you taking in this matchup, Rosalie?
Yeah, I'm the Cowboys in the Star at home are just different. That energy of the crowd, everything that's going. Reed's right. We're going to see a lot of Zeke, and Packers are not going to be able to stop him. And then, we haven't forgotten, right, that Devontae Adams probably not going to play in this game. We'll see. And the other receivers down in Green Bay, I don't trust as much. So I think that the Cowboys win this easily at home, and I think 3.5 is too low.
Matthew, I believe your work here is done. I'm happy we scraped the bottom of the barrel tonight. It was good seeing your face again. Reed and Rosalie, we will need your waiver wire recommendations right after Pat Mayo talks some PGA.
Actual guys we can use from down here. We talked about all the European players. Kurt Kitayama is just randomly over here playing in this event. A guy who's won 3 times over in Europe and the Asian Tour over the past 2 years. He's a good player. He's made 3 cuts in a row over there. Since the British, he played the Porsche, did well there, and he made 2 more cuts the past 2 weeks. That he's $6,300. Like, if you base his DraftKings price versus his world ranking, he's actually quite good.
No doubt about that. Now we see Alex Noren has torpedoed that forever, that strategy. But this is a guy that I've targeted in Europe a lot.
In fairness, that strategy won me $20K when I had Satoshi Kodaira.
Yeah, Satoshi really, it's true. He balanced out Noren. I believe he's an American, is he not?
He is American, yeah.
Yeah. So he's a guy, like you said, he has won some tournaments over in Europe. Clearly the strength of the fields is different, but we saw him, I'm just looking, obviously I didn't know this. He played in Puerto Rico and played well, grabbed the top 20 a couple years ago. It's someone, if I had to go down here, he would be in the mix. Now there's a couple other guys when we talk about Max Homa, Sepp Straka, that they were in the 7s not too long ago, and I may look to them, but that is an interesting name if you're looking for someone that not a lot of people are going to know who they are.
So the problem with Straka is that he has been bad, like really
That's
bad
true.
recently. He missed 4 cuts in a row. Like that's not great, Seb.
What about, oh God.
I got my guy. I you know what? You didn't say it, but I think we're like linked right now. Is it $6,400?
It is $6,400.
Is it Zing Zhu Zhang?
It is. It's the Chinese bad boy. It is.
The Chinese cheater. He has been fire with his irons. I'm using him. He's $6,400. Let's go.
He gained a cross, it's only one tournament, but I always love, it's hard not to love when you look at a guy and he just gained across the board at Safeway, grabbed 7th, and he was just, no doubt about it. So I don't know what to make of this guy. I mean, he has no success whatsoever when you look historically, but again, this is the swing season. He may be in form, and at this price range, what are you really sacrificing? There's not a ton to like down here.
Using him and you can sneak him through gives you access to 2 10K guys. Like if you want to use Cantlay and Scott or Cantlay and Finau or whatever, you can do that if you use Zing Zhu Zhang.
Zing Zhu Zhang. I will say part of me just wants to be smart and just pay $100 more for Doc Redman, who he missed the cut last week, but he's just good, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Like $6,500 for him, no problem with that price.
Look, man, I got a star next to his name. I got him rated 29th in this field. I'm definitely using Doc Redman. He was one of those guys that missed the cut on the number last week, who really put the screws to me. But either way, I'm willing to listen. If you're talking about like $6,000 players, they're gonna miss cuts. Like, that's just the reality of it. At least take a shot on a guy like both these guys could get placement points. Like. It's funny when we talk about these like mid $7,000 guys or low $7,000 guys. I'm not super concerned about their placement points. I want them for the cut equity, but the rosters that I construct around these guys, I know they can spike in terms of DraftKings scoring.
What's happening? I'm Brendan Glasheen, and with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash, Nationals are primarily focused on beating the Brewers in the NL wildcard game, right? Well, get this. The Washington Post is reporting the Nats offered Anthony Rendon a 7-year deal worth $210 million to $215 million. The report says early September offer, so this had to have happened weeks ago. Either way, the Post says the offer is not expected to keep Rendon from hitting the free agent market this winter. Sounds familiar now, doesn't it? Well, it's not exactly the same years and dollars. Washington offered Bryce Harper a 10-year deal for $300 million last September, and Rendon's agent is Scott Boras, who also represents, yep, you guessed it, Bryce Harper. So Boras probably persuaded Rendon not to fall for the love. Wake me up when September ends. Oh shoot, it's October 1, but the postseason is here, so I'd imagine all discussions are tabled. Rendon signed a 1-year deal to stay in the nation's capital prior to the start of this season. Certainly proved his worth. There's likely a big market for the third baseman.
Okay, turning the page to a DFS conversation about tonight's NL wildcard game between the Brewers and the Nationals in Washington, D.C. We've got DraftKings contributors Pierce Dietrich and Gary and Thorne here to deliver their showdown picks. Pierce, Max Scherzer, the most expensive player, but is he a must roster?
Yes, absolutely. Gary and I talked in the last segment about how we think this is going to be a pitcher's duel, and if it's a pitcher's duel, then the hitters probably aren't going to score very many points, so you go with the pitchers. Woodruff won't go very long. You can't really predict which reliever you're going to go with the Brewers, and I'm sure there is a Brewer reliever we will take, but Scherzer is the guy that you jam into your lineups.
You're going to be jamming him into your lineup, Garion?
Yeah. I mean, look, we talked the last segment that we both expect him to flirt with 10 strikeouts in this game. As soon as you say something like that, the price point doesn't even really matter. And Pierce mentioned how strange the construct of this slate really is. I mean, it's a game with an implied total below 8 runs. It's a game where only one starting pitcher is expected to go more than 2 innings. there's a very real chance that Max Scherzer is the only person who gets close to 20 DKFB tonight, and his ceiling is like 35. So you could really know quickly if you're someone who's out there fading Scherzer that you are just out of GPPs because life will come at you fast tonight.
Okay, so it would be a dumb move to not have him in your Showdown lineup, is what you're telling me.
I would say so, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Gary and the Nationals have the 4 most expensive bats tonight. So who do you like out of these guys? Trey Turner, Anthony Rendon, Howie Kendrick, or Juan Soto?
I just think it's Rendon. He's somehow not the most expensive of these 4 names, which is surprising. And I sort of mentioned this before when it came to both he and Soto, but in these game scripts where you're going to have 4 to 5 plate appearances against 4 to 5 different pitchers, there's really no way to attack Rendon, especially not through a handedness perspective. He's got a 4.18 WOBA against left-handed pitching and a 4.11 WOBA against right-handed pitching. Like, he's never in a bad spot. So I just think he's far and away the best offensive piece on this slate.
Pierce, where do you sit on this?
Yeah, it's Anthony Rendon. I mean, just look at every statistical metric. He's the best among those options. And it's kind of a weird day because typically we look at hitters and we look at all the matchups, and you can't look at matchups. The first time all year, you can't look at the matchups because we don't know who he's going to face. He'll face Woodruff. He'll face Hader. He'll face a handful of other relievers. So you just pick the best hitter. If you want an obscure stat to try to fade Rendon, maybe you go with Howie Kendrick, who has a 400 BABIP at home. That's somehow not the highest BABIP. So if you want the luckiest player on the team, then you go with Kendrick.
Okay, Pierce, I know you've said multiple times it's going to be a pitcher's duel, but I have to ask you this question because we still have like 20 minutes to fill. Which Milwaukee bats do you like the most? This might be a tough one for you.
Well, so it is tough if you think you're going to figure it out. But once you step back and say there really isn't a good option, and you just, I don't know, you go down Narrative Street, you've got to throw out, the matchup is terrible for all these Brewers bats. Strasburg, Corbin, and Scherzer. So you just throw out the stats and you go Narrative Street and you think, hey, Ryan Braun, he's limping on the field. He's got a calf injury. Maybe he pulls his best Kirk Gibson impression and hits a home run. I mean, that's really what you're looking for, the fluke home run. Strasburg has been known to give up a home run or two. Before the injury, Braun did hit 2 home runs in the Red Series. I just maybe Garion has a statistical way of looking at this, but they all look bad.
Garion, help me out here, man.
Yeah, well, I did mention that I sort of like Grandal just because he has had some success against pitchers who are able to throw 95 plus with that fastball. So, you factor that in with the fact he's hitting in the 2 spot in the order, which is, pretty much goes without saying that's a high leverage, great DFS spot for a player to be hitting. His salary is relatively low. He also very not Yasmani Grandal-like, but he's been better against left-handed pitching than he has against right-handed pitching so far this season, which doesn't necessarily bode well for his first couple of bats in this game. But if the narrative does go like Pierce and I talked about earlier, where we get Patrick Corbin, we get Sean Doolittle late in this game, as a switch hitter, he's at least never necessarily in a poor split. And he's been exceptional against lefties so far this season. So I think Grandal is the way to go. Like, really, I think you have to focus yourself on the left-handed bats in this lineup just because Max Scherzer has been so dominant right on right. Just a 223 WOBA this season. His strikeout rate in right on right plate appearance is up over 38%. Like, the numbers are insane.
Okay, then. So, with both starters, you don't really know how long they're going to be going for here. Would you play any relievers to save some money, Garion?
Yeah, but there's the interesting wrinkle here of how dependent these two teams, specifically Washington, are going to be on utilizing starters as relievers, and DraftKings has not priced these starters as relievers.
I'm looking at this right now because I'm trying to build my lineup at the same time.
Yeah, it's tough because even let's use Drew Pomeranz as the example. I mean, Pomeranz has been a reliever for the Brewers, yet he is priced at $8,600 as a starting pitcher on this slate. So you really can't use him, even though I have a lot of confidence that Pomeranz will appear in this game because he's one of their best pitchers and he's someone who can throw multiple innings. But this really breaks down to Josh Hader. I just think Hader is exceptionally usable. He is going to appear in this game. Aside from maybe Doolittle, there is no one I can guarantee will appear in this game aside from Josh Hader. He's going to throw multiple innings, has a high strikeout upside. I would even go so far as to say, if you want to get a little crazy, I don't hate Hader as a captain's pick. just to save some money.
Oh.
No, it's real risky, but I've got a lineup centered around Hader there. And look, again, I'm guaranteeing he'll be in this game.
Okay, Pierce, you want to get a little weird with your lineup too?
Gary makes a good point there. Hader he might be the highest owned player tonight. He's going to be up there with Scherzer. He's cheap, and we know for a fact he's going to get into the game. You look at Game 7 of the postseason last year against the Dodgers. He came in the 3rd inning. Game 1 against the Dodgers, they brought him in the 5th inning. They will use him early in the game. It's almost a guarantee. He's pitched really well. And the thing about putting him in the captain spot, if everyone is going to play him and you want to differentiate with a limited player pool, the best way to do that is to take that crazy play and put him into the captain spot. Now, that could blow up pretty quickly if Scherzer goes off, which he awfully could. But if you want to be different, you want to be unique and try to separate in a small player pool, then maybe you put Hader into that spot. But he is the guy you have to jam in next to Scherzer.
Okay, so, I mean, both of you kind of just mentioned if you wanted to get strange or weird with your lineups, a couple guys you throw into your captain spot, but 100% who is going to be in your captain spot, Pierce?
Yeah, I'll go with the safer option. I'm going to go with Scherzer because he could get the 10 strikeouts. He's going to get the innings. You take the safe guarantee. Even if Hader has a really good game, he's still only going to get 3 innings out of it.
Okay, what about you, Garion?
Yeah, if I've got 10 lineup constructs, maybe one's a Hader, but 7 to 8 are Max Scherzer. It's like I said before, you could really see a situation where, sure, you might own Scherzer, and that's great. But if someone's got him at 1.5x value and he's already scoring 2 times more than anyone else in the field, you've got to have him in that captain slot. Just figure the rest out.
All right, good stuff. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll be talking AL wildcard tomorrow with you. We'll poke over to the NFL waiver wire right after Janko and Ben Zwyman break down the scoring changes for NHL Showdown contest on DraftKings this season. Really good stuff.
What's going on, DK family? Alex Shankowski, Ben Zwyman here to talk about changes to DFS hockey. NHL season starting off this week, and DraftKings has made a bunch of changes, all for the better. Higher scoring structure overall. You got captains pick now in Showdown, and you even got bonuses for things like block shots, a certain amount of saves in the game, overall shots in the game. So Ben, when you look at all these changes, which one stands out to you as the biggest one and the most impactful one?
I think all the bonuses to forwards, well, not so much forwards, but just the point bonuses and the shots on goal and the block shots bonuses really stand out because it's going to elevate the scoring for forwards and centers for the most part. Defensemen and goalies doesn't really change too much. If you look at the goalie changes, the max for a 35 save shutout is 18 points. A lot of the times forwards, if they get 3 points, you get a bonus. If you get 5 shots on goal, you get a bonus. If you get 3 block shots, you get a bonus. A lot of those centers are going to be able to reach those thresholds, and that's really going to boost them a lot, especially with the hat trick bonus. So I think for DFS purposes, you're not going to see too much change in defenseman and goalie, but definitely you're going to want to stack a lot of those high-priced centers, a lot of those high-priced forwards, and those scoring forwards.
So how is that maybe going to change your overall strategy when you're looking at, filling out your lineup? Are you still stacking the way you normally would? You still selecting goalies the way you normally would?
I think so. If anything, it changes the goalie strategy a little bit just because they don't have as high a ceiling as some of the other players because before the changes, you could see goalies reach anywhere from 10 to 12 points if they put up a big shutout or get a win. Now, they're sort of capped unless they have an absolutely big performance, but you're never going to see a goalie get more than, say, 20, 22 points in a game. You're going to see forwards reach that mark a lot, especially if guys are getting hat tricks, 3-point performances. So I don't think it changes too much as far as stacking. You're still going to use the same strategies, the same correlations. Maybe you're going to look, instead of paying up at defensemen, you're going to look for a lot of guys in the mid-range, guys that are going to have high shots plus blocks percentages, right? Because you want those shots bonuses, the blocks bonuses. So I don't think it changes too much. It just makes things a lot more exciting because you're seeing higher scoring totals.
Yes, scoring equals good. It's going to do it here. He's Ben Zwyman. I'm Alex Shankowski. Good luck out there.
Hi there, it's Brendan Glasheen and with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. NBA Media Days are here. They do allow for reflection, but also the start of new beginnings. Happy feelings. Joel Embiid chose to reflect. He and the Sixers are still feeling the gut punch of losing Game 7 of the East Semis to the Raptors. Embiid went as far as to say the loss haunted him and contributed to his offseason program, which helped him drop 20 pounds. Knee tendonitis kept the center out for 12 games post-All-Star break. His production slouched in the second half, also in the playoffs. You'd think the addition of Al Horford would actually prompt Embiid to play in less games to gear up for the postseason. Total opposite. This year, I see myself playing over 70 games, Embiid said. That's going to be good for us because we're trying to get the number 1 seed and we're trying to win over 60 games. It's going to help me because I need that team success if I want to be able to win MVP or Defensive Player of the Year. All sounds beauticious from a DFS perspective. While the weight loss helps his cause, Embiid will still have to listen to his body at the end of the day. As great as a 1 seed would be, the East is weak, and Philly should like its chances to make a deep playoff run if Embiid is as close to 100% as possible.
Hear everyone laughing back here in the control room, and I'm out here alone. What the hell, man? Final block of the program, and you season-long assassins need to focus because we're dipping our toes into the waiver wire right meow. We're DK contributors Reed T. Fowler, Jeff Ulrich, and the fantasy girl, Rosalie Michaels. Rosalie, if someone needs a running back, who should they chase?
I am chasing. Chasing is hard because these guys are fast, but I'm definitely going after Jalen Samuels this week. We saw him have as many touches as James Conner did last night, and Conner injured his ankle a little bit, so it's interesting to see what they might be doing this week because they're going to be on a little bit of a short week. And we saw Jalen Samuels actually throw the ball 3 times last night as well. So I like him specifically for this week. Definitely not season long. I think we're going to see Connor take those touches over a little bit more. But it's interesting to see how they might be doing this new look Steelers offense with a dual back situation back there. But definitely some more Jalen Samuels this week. And don't forget, Baltimore just got crushed by Chubb this past week. So I like him a lot this week.
Oh my gosh. Reed, who do you like? Which running back on the waiver wire could be there for our loyal fans watching?
Yeah, it's going to be Darrell Williams. He's not necessarily someone that you can plug in right away and play him. He's owned in about 52, about 0.5% of most leagues. And he was a filler that when we saw McCoy and the other Williams get hurt, he performed really well. And if you look at McCoy, who was active for that game and playing, Williams got more snaps than McCoy, and he was in that last drive, and Andy Reid trusts him, and he fits in this offense. So if someone dropped him because McCoy was then deemed active for this last game and the week before, I would go scoop him up.
Jeff, this is when you shine here, man.
Oh. Look, I'm just going to sit here and take my victory lap because for the last 2 weeks, I've been saying,
yes,
use your waiver wire on Jalen Samuels.
Yes.
So if you listen to me, you already have Jalen Samuels, and you're just sitting here basking in the glow of all the fantasy goodness about to come your way. Look, he only played 27 snaps last night. It felt like he was on the field all the time. But that's because almost every time he was on the field, he touched the ball with 18 touches. This is a multi-dimensional, fantastic receiver, caught all 8 of his targets last night. He's got a fantastic conversion rate. I can't see the Steelers not continuing to use him. And, James Conner might be banged up. Spend all your waiver money, whatever league you're in. I don't know. Get Jalen Samuels. He could win your league if you get him this year.
Wait, So Jeff, I mean this in all seriousness. Do you think the Wildcat stays? Because that's the only way he's getting all these carries.
They'll throw him in as a receiver too. I don't care about the Wildcat. I mean, obviously the passes are nice, the little dump passes that count for passing. But I think they'll continue to use it for sure because Mason Rudolph isn't that good. But I think you saw his value as a receiver. I think that's the bigger value with a guy like Mason Rudolph, who the Steelers obviously don't trust. So.
Yeah, man, if you guys follow Jeff on Twitter, you would have known by just watching last night, watching him tweet. You love Samuels.
I lost like 10 followers tweeting about Jalen Samuels.
It doesn't matter because it's all about quality, not quantity. Trust me on that one, buddy. Wide receiver, Reed.
Yeah, it's going to be Geronimo Allison. Whenever you can get either the 1 or 2 receiver with Aaron Rodgers, and he should be the number 1. I know Marquez Valdes-Scantling is someone that a lot of people have, but Geronimo Allison, again, he's probably in 75% of your leagues available on the waiver wire. And again, he doesn't get the volume, or he hasn't seen the volume yet, but we talked about it, and Rosalie mentioned it. If Adams is out, you like these Packers. The Cowboys aren't exactly the best, and it remains to be seen who Byron Jones is going to be covering. But Geronimo Allison, you saw some of those catches last week. He's that big body receiver that Aaron Rodgers trusts. So if you can, go get him.
Okay, Jeff?
Yeah, this is kind of like 2 weeks ago with Samuels. I'm going on Andy Isabella. This is a player who was massively productive in college, 1,700 yards in 12 games last year, 14 touchdowns last year college. Everyone thought he would be a starter for the Cardinals right off the bat, work magic with Kyler Murray. He got banged up, and then for some reason, Cliff Kingsbury decided to bench him for a couple games. Now the Cardinals have no offense. Christian Kirk is banged up. This is probably a spot where Isabella is going to see some field. It might not happen this week, but in a couple weeks, I would not be shocked to see Andy Isabella become a pretty consistent fantasy performer with Kyler Murray. So go out and get him this week, in my opinion.
Rosalie, you picking up what these guys are putting down, or you got someone else?
I'm going somewhere else, but I wanted to address Jeff there for a minute. There's two guys you need to listen about on the Arizona Cardinals. That's Keyshawn Johnson and Trent Sherfield. Both of those guys I like ahead of, I do like Andy Isabella, but those two guys have a little bit more chemistry with Kyler Murray, so keep an eye on him. But I'm going Mohamed Sanu. Mohamed Sanu, up until Calvin Ridley came into the picture, was the number 2 there in Atlanta. And now he has one more reception than Julio Jones 4 weeks into the season. So, you know, Julio has 4 more touchdowns, but Sanu is getting the looks. He's getting the targets, even ahead of Calvin Ridley from Matt Ryan. So somebody that in a team that is a highly passing offense, I like Sanu. He's still available in about 68% of the leagues out there, and he can do a lot with the football when they get it to him.
Tight end, Jeffrey.
Going to Buffalo, Dawson Knox.
What?
I like this guy. I mean, he's a really good receiver. I mean, he's just a solid tight end with good hands who's averaging like a pretty massive yards per catch. He's seen 4 targets over the last 3 games. I know Josh Allen is probably going to miss this game, but I don't think Matt Barkley is someone who necessarily just throwing it deep every time. So it's a really good matchup going against Tennessee. The Bills also play Miami twice in like the next month, so that's a good thing. I think Dawson Knox is an emerging story here, and I think at a pretty thin position, if you've got injury issues or bye weeks, I think Dawson Knox could definitely fill in and throw up a big week for you here soon.
Rosalie, I think I know where you're going on this.
Yeah, I previewed it a little bit earlier.
Yeah, you did. A little teaseruno.
Teaseruno, I like it. Yeah, I'm going Tyler Eifert. You know, he had 5 targets this past week. Look, the Bengals O-line is terrible. They're not running the ball all that much to the chagrin of the Mixon owners out there. And again, they're facing Arizona this week. I know a lot of people out there are streaming their tight ends now, and this is a great stream. You know what? Cardinals have given 32 receptions to tight ends and 431 yards. Tampa Bay, you know, is second at 365. But this is the matchup that you're looking for at that tight end position. A healthy Eifert is always a red zone threat, and he's going to be a lot this week against the Cardinals.
All right, we're going to Green Bay for your selection, Reed.
Yeah, Jimmy Graham, someone that shouldn't have been drafted at all just because he's aging and Aaron Rodgers never really got a connection, but we saw it. Last week, and
he looked at him a lot in that game.
Yeah, and you just look at the red zone targets. The tight end is always a barren wasteland for fantasy, and if you can get red zone targets, and Graham has seen 4 this season so far, I think he's a good ad, especially again when Adams is out, or if Adams is out.
He's no Will Dissly though, bro. That's for sure.
Dawson Knox, he probably made the best catch in that game when he was falling back as well, so which was really, really impressive.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Indeed it is. Rosalie, how about a DST? I mean, we're digging deep here.
I like Tennessee a lot this week. You know, this may come as a little bit of a surprise. Josh Allen, he's okay at football, but he's not great at the football. You know what? You like him because of his mobility, but he's just not doing great in the throwing, much to the against the Dawson Knox comment before. He's just not doing that great of a job. The interception upside here is just massive. And, you know, they're not scoring a lot of points either. So you've got that aspect to it. The Tennessee Titans have been doing a great job on defense. And this week, you know, the Buffalo Bills have given up 7 interceptions on the year. 10 sacks on the year, 3 fumble recoveries, and 2 touchdowns.
Okay.
I like the Tennessee defense.
All right, guys, we have a minute to go. Reed, you're an idiot with your selection. You're going against Minshew Mania here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, absolutely, it's going to be. It's not going to be good. That's what I'm trying to say here.
Okay,
Carolina,
bud, whatever. The Panthers are done, kid.
Like Jacksonville, they give up the second, or one of the worst in pass and run blocking. I think Garner is actually keeping them in these games. And if you look at Carolina, they're rushing the second most, and the second most sacks as well. So give me Carolina.
All right, we have less than 30 seconds. Jeff, say something quickly.
I just can't even speak. How could you start a defense against Gardner Minshew? It's
easy. You press a button.
Who do you have? Real quick. Nothing? Great.
Oh,
yes.
He's doing a
The
Steve
walk-off.
Buchanan.
The walk-off.
Is he Buchanan?
That's a show.
Yeah.
He
That's
totally
a show.
Buchanan'd you.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, congrats to our producer, Steve Feeney, who is now engaged. Jesse is now the only one not engaged.